How's it going, guys? You know, one of the few things I feel like I've been a little guilty of over my last few videos is that I've mostly been tackling games I've held a bit of an attachment to throughout my youth. But despite this game coming out in 2003, where my love of video games blossomed into something beautiful, I sadly never got around to this game until a few years back. And that, my friends, was the highly rated but sadly commercial failure that was Beyond Good and Evil. When it comes to games that are seen as hidden gems by much of the gaming community today, Beyond Good and Evil is up there right next to games like Eternal Darkness, Enslavement, Odyssey to the West, Psychonauts, and just about everything created for the Dreamcast. Many people believe that the game was ahead of its time, that the oversaturation of the market had a devastating impact on the game's overall sales performance. And to be honest, I'm inclined to agree with the latter at least, because there were some games that year that you probably didn't want so close by you.
Wind Waker, Jak 2, SSX 3, Vice City on Xbox, Knights of the Old Republic, Silent Hill 3, Ratchet & Clank Going Commander, Max Payne 2, SimCity 4, Rayman 3, and Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Now, out of all those games, that last one probably had the biggest hindrance against Beyond Good and Evil, as the two released merely 1 week apart from one another, and supposedly Ubisoft, who was publishing both games, put more of their advertising efforts towards the Sands of Time. What's more, the Jade engine that was used in Sands of Time was, as the name suggests, built mainly for Beyond Good and Evil. Talk about pouring salt on the wound.
Now, I personally do remember seeing ads on TV for this game, but let's just say my opinion was, well, mixed at the time.
Trust the authorities. We are in full control. You are safe. Relax. Life is good.
Yeah, so with me not knowing really much about this game and the mountain pile of other titles on my mind at the time, this game sadly fell off the radar for me. But years later I would eventually pick up the HD re-release, and my mixed feelings would remain kinda mixed, but hey, let's explore those feelings together, shall we? This, my friends, is Beyond Good and Evil.
The world of Beyond Good and Evil focuses on the planet of Hillis, where the inhabitants have been suffering attacks from an alien race simply known as the Doms, not to be confused with a certain other Dom of the like. At the aid of civilians are the Alpha Section, a galactic military dictatorship that has somewhat been protecting the people of Hillis, but has mostly been using their position to bend the will of the people through their use of propaganda.
The use of an Orwellian themed setting has definitely been done to death in most forms of media, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't eat this shit up, you know?
Our protagonist is a young 20-something-year-old girl named Jade, who, while mainly works as a photojournalist, helps take in children whose parents were abducted by the Doms. Assisting her is her Uncle Paige, a humanoid pigman, and an AI of hers named Secundo, who can't seem to agree as to whether he is either Spanish or Italian. One day after repelling an attack by the Doms, Jade is hired by a shady individual who turns out to be working for the Iris Network, a resistance group that is working to expose the truth behind the Doms in the Alpha Section. Under their command, Jade sets out on a mission to infiltrate and document the Alpha Section's dark secrets in the hope of pulling back the curtain and awakening a revolution amongst the people. The story is mostly straightforward, but there are areas in which they manage to build on the planet's culture and history through various details used in the game's environments. Things like security and armed forces manage to stick out well enough thanks to the game's use of colour and lighting, helping to create a real feeling of unease for the player. However, while this familiar dark theme is present here, it manages to not overshadow some of the more weird and colourful parts to Beyond Good and Evil, like this garage run by Jamaican rhinos. Wait, what? Though to be honest, much of this surrealness shouldn't surprise me, this game was helmed by Rayman creator Michel Ancel. Apparently inspiration for this game came from such things as the works of Hayao Miyazaki, politics in the media, and 9/11. Shit, I really don't know how to respond to that, so bailing out. If there's one thing that came to mind as I played Beyond Good and Evil, it'd probably be another French oddity in the form of The Fifth Element. Both properties definitely show the creative freedom of their directors, and they both weren't afraid of people questioning their choice and style. The slight difference that I feel that Ancel at least knows his limits, while Luc Besson, Yeah, not so much. Let's get down to the gameplay, why don't we? When you look over this game's various gameplay mechanics, it makes it a bit hard to compare it with any past titles. The closest I can think of would most likely be the 3D Legend of Zelda games due to their combat, puzzles, platforming, and their way of unlocking new areas thanks to new items or upgrades. That being said, this game also includes with it photography, vehicle combat, and a heavy amount of stealth used throughout. So in some way it kind of isn't like Zelda then. Similar to the way you control Link, Jade is played in a third person perspective, jumping is automatically triggered when approaching potential platforms throughout, though you can also crawl and roll, and while in combat you can lock onto enemies and can switch between opponents on the fly. Although to be honest, just like the majority of the 3D Zelda games, I don't think the combat is that particularly deep. It never feels broken, it's just not very challenging is all. Though things definitely do get very hectic when it comes to fighting in small spaces. Health can be bought and sometimes found hidden away with you being able to use these simple 1 heart snacks or these full heart snacks, which makes me wonder why they are like this, as a quarter of the way in the game the 1 heart snacks become pretty redundant as your health quickly increases thanks to finding or purchasing these PA1s. What's more, the full health snacks cost only the equivalent of 2 1 heart snacks, so either they were going really easy on the player or someone didn't do their math right. I may as well talk about Jade's sidekicks while I'm at it. Their usefulness mostly comes by way of pressing switches in puzzles, smashing the ground so as to use certain enemies as projectiles, as well as other things here and there. While it is nice to have a companion throughout most of the game, they both however annoyingly come with very small health bars and get in the way at times, especially during combat. Also, they don't seem too worried when taking up your time as you wait for them in your hovercraft. Any minute now. Any minute. Any minute. Oh, thank God. I should mention that while it seems like Jade and her uncle are going to be with each other throughout the majority of the game, that's actually not the case, as Paige ends up getting swapped out with Double H here, a former soldier turned rebel who for some reason keeps yelling out the names. Why? What is the point of this? I mean, I sorta get that it's supposed to be these authors to some soldier rulebook of his, but why of all things would this be what he calls out? I don't know, maybe some people see it differently. But let's talk about one of the other main pillars to Beyond Good and Evil, that being the hovercraft. For the most part, it's just okay. That's really the best compliment I think I can give it. Due to it, well, not being grounded means that turning can feel very off at times, and it pretty much just becomes a bumper car when used in enclosed spaces. There will be moments where you need to use the hovercraft in combat-like situations, which sadly don't end up working out most of the time due to the camera being a little stiff and placed in a very frustrating position. Also, jumping on these lasers proved to be quite a pain in my arse multiple times thanks to you having very little depth perception. As for the stealth used throughout the game, it's probably the thing that works out the most, but sadly there's nothing really special about it when compared to the multiple other stealth games that are already out at this point. It's mostly just your usual sneaky behind walls and crouch behind cover with some other bits thrown in now and then. Sometimes there were a few areas that were somewhat open to multiple approaches, but mostly it comes down to just one path each time. If you're spotted, you can either try your luck at taking out the guards or simply just run back and hide until they've lost interest. If a turret is nearby when caught, well, then it's kinda game over. If you hit a guard from behind, you'll be able to stun them, and if you can repeat this once more, you can take them out in a pretty hilarious fashion. I did find out later that I could at times just quickly hit one of them twice, run off, then repeat it until the room was cleared of enemies, but I only did this a few times. While the story progression is laid out for you early on, and when I say that, I mean they literally explain beat for beat as to where you're going to be going, there is however a decent amount of extra activities for you to take on, such as racing in your hovercraft, playing a shuffleboard-like game, chasing down thieves, and exploring locked-off parts of the city. Many of these activities will lead to you collecting or earning pearls. While most of this game's stuff is bought using these star thingies, upgrades for your hovercraft are instead purchased using pearls so as to gain new abilities like jumping and rockets. And while it does feel like your hovercraft is improving as the game continues, it's a shame we aren't really given the same amount of focus to Jade herself. The most we get is a glove that launches out projectile discs, security passes that help in opening up new areas to you, and a zoom for your camera early on. That's really the extent of it. Which leads me to Jade herself. Many have critiqued Jade as being a standout protagonist in video games due to her being one of the few female leads in a video game who wasn't sexualized. And while I will admit I do kind of want to see more strong female characters like Jade in video games, I just sort of wish we could have got to know her character a bit more is all. We do get those moments where we see her care deeply for her uncle and the planet. It's just, I feel for the most part of the game she has little control over her path and instead just told what to do by the Iris network all the time.
Now it may seem like I'm picking out more negative points from this game than there are positive ones, but let me make this clear, there are still some things in this game that I find to be really special and really do propel it to be something more.
For example, one thing I have to give a lot of credit to is the animation used in the game. The way that Jade moves feels very natural and for the time was very groundbreaking. The best moments for me tended to be the optional stealth segments you were allowed to do inside the city, mostly because they were the most challenging parts of the game and the city setting itself just felt more appealing compared to the very limited in colour locales like the factory and slaughterhouse. I also really loved taking and collecting photos of the many species home to the planet, which not only made for excellent world building but also gave you reason to explore more and take notice of all the planet's life forms, whether they be everyday citizens or wildlife ranging from insects to whales. The music also stands out here with some really nice soothing tracks used throughout that really help in adding to the game's charming atmosphere. If I can however point out a few nitpicks I had in both of my playthroughs, at one point while in the factory I needed to activate an elevator by finding a fuse in order to switch it on and move forward. But then, almost an hour later, when you're trying to get out of said factory, you need to find another fuse, which on both tries I had missed out, as it turns out was in the same room as the first one. I could say this was just me not paying attention, but I missed this out on both playthroughs, so I'm chalking out to bad placement. Also, not to spoil anything, but I feel the ending was a little too abrupt, with them kind of shoehorning in some reason to make Jade special, and not just some kind-hearted relatable working girl who signed up out of her own free will.
So like I said, my opinion of when I first saw this game was very much a mixed stew of emotions, and having played this game years later, it's still very much that. However, there is still a lot of things to really enjoy out of this game that I do kind of recommend people playing it just to see for yourself.
There's stuff I like here. Hell, there's one or two things I'm pretty sure I loved. It's just that I wish this game could have focused on trying to make one of these gameplay mechanics stand out from the rest. Some of you may have heard that development, I say that in huge quotation marks, for Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been moving forward for a few years now. However, with only 2 CG trailers being released and with Ansel's attention fixed on his new indie studio Wild Sheep Studios and the new IP Wild, it looks to still be a while until we see a return from Jade. Whether you feel this game deserved better is up to you and how you connected with each of these various gameplay mechanics. This game did take chances, which I'm always appreciative of, and if we truly ever do get to see Beyond Good and Evil 2 anytime soon, well, I'll be there looking forward to another interesting and hopefully entertaining experience.
So thank you once again for tuning in. If you happen to like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for even more hot Coss goodness, and you can check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks again guys, and hey, be seeing you around.